This is the second episode of Making a Soulsborne Game, a series where I do just that. You don't need to watch the first episode because it was based off of the story, in the broad strokes though, and this one will be about the general mechanics of the game, so if you just want to see this one, go ahead, I don't care. It'll be going from items to character mechanics, and etc, etc. Oof. And we're starting the combat mechanics off with a doozy of a change. I'm making it so that you don't lose stamina when you attack. Yeah, that's right. Now, I know this might not be popular with some of the Dark Souls purist fans out there, but I am also trying to make it more fun for everybody and change the gameplay up from rolling and nothing else. And I don't care. After playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I can't let this go. This is the best bit of game design I've ever come across that would fit perfectly with Soulsborne games, and it's not in them. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you do lose stamina when attacking, yes. However, if you hit an enemy, you regain all of your stamina. Which is just amazing. Well, I don't think you should regain all of it in this game. It should be around 75% to make sure that you still aren't being too careless. I think it would make it easier and more fun to be able to hit enemies more than, twice, so you aren't super limited in your options while still promoting the careful and methodical combat the game already wants you to do. Now on to the weapons themselves. I'm going to have a few weapon types, taken once again from Pathfinder. These types include simple weapons, the most common weapons that are fairly basic without any special mechanics to them. Martial weapons, the moderately common weapons that require a little bit of practice to use at their full potential, but will have some extra weapon-specific attributes to them. And finally, exotic weapons, which are fairly rare and require you to complete a quest to get them, though they are the most powerful type of weapon with the most extra special functions to them. There won't be too many weapons in the exotic category, and there will be a weapon specific to each of the states, with the simple weapons just being strewn around the world as well. Each weapon type will also have one-handed, light weapons, two-handed, heavy weapons, and ranged weapons. So now that you know what the types are, let's jump straight into the simple weapons. In light simple weapons, there are the following: maces, dealing 46 damage, sigils, dealing 44 damage, and 8 morning stars, dealing 80 damage. The Morning Star is the best one-handed simple weapon, and since they're one-handed, in case you didn't know, that means you can hold a shield or something else if you want, like a sidearm. Yeah. The heavy weapons include great axes, which deal 168 damage, warhammers, which deal 173 damage, and finally halberds, which deal 122 damage and have the highest reach. The two ranged weapons are short bows, which deal 77 ranged damage, and crossbows, which deal 46 ranged damage. The next category is martial weapons, which have a certain thing you have to do to be able to use the special weapon mechanics, usually a short side quest, though if you just want to use them like normal weapons, these quests are optional, and I will talk about the side quests required to get these abilities later. The light weapons include katanas, dealing 210 damage, and can quickly attack twice in a row if the first attack hits an enemy. There are also rapiers with 156 damage, and the ability to hit what I'm going to call pressure points on an enemy, basically just mini crits if you use the attacks correctly. There are also parrying daggers, which are actually just a sidearm, dealing only 90-ish damage, but having a giant parrying window when you attack with it, and staves, which deal 190 damage of varying elements depending where you find it. The heavy weapons include dragon teeth? I don't know, I'm just gonna say dragon tooth, because that's funny to me. So the Dragon Tooth will be taken directly from Dark Souls 1. Will deal 437 damage and can summon undead warriors at the cost of some damage from striking opponents. Tridents, which deal 172 damage and can be slammed into the ground to make a small earthquake. Claws, which deal 180 damage and let you target and lunge towards an enemy, just like you can in X-Men Origins Wolverine the game. Though I will be shortening the reach on it because if it were the full range as it is in the game, it would be extremely overpowered and completely destroy the game. Aside from those, there are farming hoes, which have farming in the name because some people would go all Peter Griffin laugh over that if it wasn't there. But I digress. It does 187 damage and can sow the souls straight out of enemies, granting a medium bonus to any souls you pick up. This will also be found fairly near the start, in the bottom of the tower at the beginning, just because I think it would be hilarious to see someone do a farming hoe only challenge run if this were ever actually released. The other heavy martial weapons includes our first weapon that's always dual-wielded. Double broadswords. I don't care how unrealistic this is. It's cool. So once you have a grand total of 50 strength, you can use these weapons, which both deal 325 damage and can summon fire from the ground. There's also going to be one ranged weapon that can use 4 different variations, that being advanced crossbows, which deal 322 range damage and can have any sort of ammunition loaded into it, those being crossbows... crossbows? No. Those being crossbow bolts, fireworks, which explode and do more damage, ice bolts, which freeze enemies, and finally, javelins, which shoot through enemies and can be picked back up once shot, also used as melee weapons. The final category of weapons is the exotic weapons. All of these weapons can be transformed into a different version of that same weapon, a function ripped directly from Bloodborne because it's really cool. They'll also be the most damaging weapons in the game, but will also have suitable drawbacks. These weapons include a catching pole exactly like the one in Night Trap. At least I think so. I don't know what's happening in that game? Can you really call it a game? Anyway, you will not be catching anything with this catching pole. You will be bashing enemies over the head with it. It does 460 damage, and its transformation has it open up its claws, I guess, and let the stabby, bit come out, so it can deal thrusting damage and pierce through armor, dealing extra damage based on an enemy's armor stat. The other weapons include angel swords, which do 520 damage and can transform into a flaming broadsword that can be used to guard. Vampiric scythes, which deal 600 damage, heals you 420 health per hit, and transforms into a double-headed scythe that has spinning attacks. And finally, Fear Heron axes. I called them this because I don't know what to call dual-wielded axes attached to your wrist by a chain, and that is where it's from. That's the state it's from. This does 640 damage and can transform to attach the 2 axes together and off of your wrists. So it's kind of like nunchaku, but for axes. Finally, we have the ranged exotic attacks, which are demon bows, which deal 420 damage and transform into 2 different bows that shoot fire arrows. How does that work, you may ask? I don't care. I'm once again invoking the rule of cool. Anyway, though, the final ranged weapon is a great bow, which deals 600 damage and transforms to shoot 2 arrows at the cost of 1. I know that one's a little bit of a boring one after the last couple, but I was running out of options, and I was running out of ideas. So now with that multi-week long part of the script done, let's get on with the rest of the game mechanics, starting with the save system, or systems, actually, I guess? For saving, your character finds a journal and writes their journey thus far in it. This is also an item which has 5 saves in it before you need to find another checkpoint, where you can refill your journal with more notes. Don't worry though, you can also pick up pages, either in singles or 5s, from killing enemies, and the drop rate goes moderately up once you run out. This also means that checkpoints can afford to be farther apart because you'll have a larger collection of pages. Speaking of items though, now is a good time for me to talk about the items aside from the weapons. I won't be adding anything that are purely because it's unsatisfying to go through a long section of gameplay that you struggled with heavily, only to find out that not only was the item you got not useful for the story, it also doesn't get you anything aside from lore, and it does nothing for the rest of the game. That's why I made a weapon for each state, so the player is always finding new things to make them more powerful, to establish the core gameplay loop supposed to be present in Soulsborne games, to give players a sense of dread while they're struggling, but then the feeling of overwhelming accomplishment once they do get past a hard part. So the items will be weapons that also give you lore, as well as other core items, what I'm going to call tools. We'll start with a healing item, disregarding any other items that can be used to heal. At this point, this is just the main one, the Estus Flask of this game, if you will. This is what I'll call a healing salve, basically a magical cure-all thing that heals a bunch. Though as per tradition, you only have 5 before you have to refill them at a checkpoint. The other tools are all consumables to affect the battlefield in some way, or medals to upgrade an existing facet of your character. The consumables include the following: firebombs, stones, normal bombs, grenades, smoke screens, and erasers. The erasers are basically just homeward bones from previous games. The medals include health medallions, stamina medals, strength medals, treasure medals, which rumble the controller when there's treasure nearby, and finally soul medals, which raising the amount of souls you get from enemies. For death, I'm going to be handling it slightly different from how it's been in the past. When you die, it will take a page from Hollow Knight and spawn a specter in your corpse's place. Not too different. However, the difference is that here, it can and will follow you across the entire map. The longer you avoid killing it to regain your souls, the more souls it gains, but it also gains more power, so at the point where it has the max amount of souls, it can easily one-shot you at almost any health level. This also happens every time you die. If you haven't killed it yet, then it will keep your souls and get the souls from this death as well. Following this, though, if you die 10 times in a row without killing the Spectre, you immediately lose all of your souls from the Spectre and have to regain them all. The final mechanic group is the movement mechanics. These will be in a few groups, those being ground travel, sea travel, fast travel, and combat move. Ground travel is definitely going to need to switch up because 1, it's so boring as of now, you just wander around until you find some enemies to kill, and you are extremely slow and uninteresting while you do it. And 2, this world's going to be massive, so I want to make it more interesting to get around said world. So what can I do? Well, I'll start by speeding up the character quite a bit, as well as adding more movement options, such as a dash, similar to Hollow Knight's Mothwing Cloak. The jump is added later in the game in the Strix Empire, a grappling hook from the First Kingdom that lets you hook to roofs and swing from street lamps and certain other architecture, an upgrade to the jump that lets you glide from heights, and finally a horse. You get to ride a horse, that's it. There will be a different horse for each continent, which will just be cosmetic. Next up, there are the sea travel mechanics, which will have mechanics similar to both Wind Waker HD and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Again. God dang it, Assassin's Creed, why must you do this to me? So the boat will be a small, almost canoe-like boat, which has 2 versions, a sailed version and a sailless version. The sailed version acts like the fast sail in Wind Waker HD, and you'll be sitting at the back controlling the rudder. A side quest shortly into the game gets you another upgrade that steers the ship without the need to use your hands, freeing up said hands so that you can wield bows and crossbows to hit enemies and targets you may have needed to just avoid earlier. You can also play bard music if you have picked up any instruments. It doesn't really do anything. For fast travel, you don't unlock it until you at least finish the 4 kingdoms, and you can warp to any notebook you've been to at the sacrifice of an eraser. Finally, there's combat movement. I won't be expanding it as much as the other movement types, and you'll only be able to swing from architecture instead of hooking to it with the grappling hook, but you can still dash and jump. So that's the entirety of the game mechanics in this Soulsborne game. What do you think of them? Once again, I'm pretty sure some Soulsborne fans might not like them as much, but I just really wanted to make it a lot more interesting for everyone to play, from the people who've been playing this genre since Demon's Souls, to the people that play only Kirby because his hats are funny. So don't take it personally, it's just what I would find fun. That being said, though, there will be 3 more episodes of the Let's Make a Soulsborne Game series, 1 for each continent. The release schedule hopefully being something like 1 being released a day after the other, if I have it set up correctly. In the meantime, though, I need an idea for the name of this hypothetical game, so tell me down below. Alright, thanks for watching. If you liked it, why not leave a like? If you want to see more, maybe even subscribe. I've been Loom, and good night.